Hello, everybody. Ella J here on behalf of WrestleZone, and today I'm joined by your submission sniper, the daddy of the district, the ankle breaker, Jordan Blade. How are you today?
What is going on? I am super fantastic. I'm a little exhausted, but I'm super fantastic.
I would say it's been a long week, but it's only Monday at the time of recording this. But like, I
Wow.
get you. You're also like probably coming off a wrestling weekend potentially. Basically every day you're hustling almost every single day of the week. So I can understand that. So I'm so grateful for you to join me here today. Obviously, we got some catching up to do. I think it's been about 2 years-ish since
I
the
was
last
thinking
time
that.
we talked.
Yep.
Obviously we'll talk wrestling, but I wanted to talk about another kind of important aspect to you, and that being Jiu Jitsu, which you got back into earlier this year, a little bit different than what you were used to previously. You took some time to explore what's called 10th Planet Jiu Jitsu, which uses a rash guard instead of a gi as the fighting gear, from what I understand. Before we get into your journey with all of that, can you kind of explain the significance of the gi, which you were used to previously, versus the rash guard as it relates to jujitsu?
Right. Yeah. So I'm gonna actually start calling it the G. It's a gi, but like I'm gonna
Oh,
start calling it
well,
the G. It's okay.
it sounds cooler, honestly.
It really does. I'm like, a G. What can we like make out of that? Yeah. So I think most people, not all, but most people, when they start their jujitsu journey, they usually start in the gi. It's the
Mm.
most traditional form of jujitsu, coming from the Gracie family. So Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is pretty standard. So I started in the gi, didn't do much no gi. So obviously that still only involves a
Yeah.
rash guard and spats or shorts or whatever. And then I took a bit of a hiatus from jujitsu for about a year and a half, and then recently got back into it earlier this year. And by this point, my gym had gotten a new 10th Planet coach, and I was always captivated by it because a lot of the terms they use, like their stigma is that, oh hey, like they get high and do jujitsu, and that's 100% accurate. So a lot of these names of things, like you were like, oh yeah, you're definitely high when you name this. Like one move is called the Dead Orchard. Why? I mean, I could probably tell you why, but I really don't know how they came up with that. But I wanted to study this form of jujitsu because I think the world as a whole has gotten way more athletic over the past few years. Obviously, you can see even just a few weeks ago with the Olympics, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like this brand of jujitsu, it definitely applies to pro wrestling more than obviously traditional gi jujitsu for a plethora of reasons. Um, and I feel like again, it's a little bit more athletic than traditional jujitsu because it requires you to get into positions that you wouldn't normally get into. And to watch some of these athletes compete is insane. But yeah, I'm loving this 10th Planet stuff.
What are some major differences, obviously, kind of gear wise, aside, that you've noticed in training with no gi versus training with one? I'm so curious, like move wise and like approach, like technical wise. I'm so curious.
Yeah, so with no gi, you can't grab the clothes. So that's obviously the opposite in gi. You can grab the gi, you can grab the
Yeah.
lapel, you can grab the belt, and use the gi in order to submit your opponent. So you have a little bit more items at your disposal there with gi, and because not only can you do your standard chokes and arm bars and things like that, you can do what's called a baseball choke where you would use the gi to choke your opponent. So that's like kind of the main difference there. With no gi, obviously less equipment. I don't have to carry a gi and a belt around. I could just show up and you know my rash guard and shorts and flip flops and get ready to step on the mat. But as far as technique, obviously different technique, a little bit different technique with the gi, but overall the same premise. You are trying to fold clothes with people in them. So
Yeah. And as you mentioned, you were out of jujitsu for a while as you were kind of, focusing on professional wrestling and your shoe job and all of that. What specifically prompted you to take up 10th Planet? What were your goals upon your return to jujitsu?
Yeah, so I just wanted to get back in jiu-jitsu regardless. So like regardless of what style it was.
Yeah.
And one of my good friends, oh, she's one of my best friends now. She had actually started after me, and she really got heavy into jiu-jitsu, especially while I was away. And so I'm still a blue belt, and she's now a purple belt, so she's above me now. And so like coming back to the gym, we just started to hang out more, and she was like, "Hey, like, you really gotta meet Jesse. You need to come to this class. You would love it, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, all right, I'll come. And met Jesse, and like we're super cool now. Like I will go over to his house and we'll train at his house or something like that. And he is a descendant or a student of Billy Robinson. So a lot of his teachings are coming straight from Billy Robinson. Has trained with Josh Barnett, has trained with Shayna Baszler. So that pedigree alone, I'm like, okay, word. All right, we're gonna get into this then.
Yeah, and not too long ago, you had your first international Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu federal competition. I saw you won some gold, including gold. I saw you won some medals, including gold in the heavyweight no gi. Tell us about that experience and your performance at your first, competition in a while, I have to imagine.
Yeah, for sure. That was my first competition after I think 2 years.
Yeah.
So I was super nervous, but I knew I wanted to compete in it because a ton of my teammates were competing. We took a whole squad. I think it was like 40 of us athletes from my gym competing. So I knew I wanted to compete in that even earlier this year, and that was initially what had prompted me to. I lost 15 pounds for this competition, because I really wanted to hone in on my athleticism, and compete at a weight class lower than I had done previously. But IBJJF is so. Most of these tournaments are very different from each other, but IBJJF is the first tournament that I've at least competed in where they had a bullpen. So you would like legit weigh in and then check in with one of the team members or whatever to assess that your clothing is of regulation. Then you're standing in the bullpen, so that's akin to, you professional wrestling fans who are listening, that's akin to gorilla, the spot that you're in before you go out of the curtain. So the spot that I'm standing in before I step onto the mat to compete. And there's all these athletes in the bullpen, and they're all warming up doing their own thing, and I'm just kind of standing there like, I'm not over here doing burpees like this guy over here, and I'm not over here like yelling like this guy over here. I'm just kind of like beep bopping along to my music, and my coaches are there, keeping me calm, but I'm chilling. I'm in the zone, and it's it's almost like an outer body experience once you step on the mat to compete. So kind of like same with professional wrestling, um, but like obviously with jujitsu, you don't have to worry about like playing to the crowd or anything like
Yeah.
that. So, I mean, unless you want to do something cool like a flying armbar or something like that, but it's such a surreal experience, and I'm very much, in favor of everybody taking some form of more martial art. So, jiu-jitsu being one of them, Muay Thai being, close behind it in my opinion. Sorry, Janai, it's number two.
I know heading in, obviously, I have to imagine you were really nervous, but coming out of it now, you walk away. I think you had at least three medals on you. You had bronze, silver, and gold in three different things. I have to imagine it's a little bit of a, validation for you and maybe boosted your confidence in some aspect.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I was, even though you want to go into everything confident,
Of
and
course.
I was still shocked. I was like, no, no way did I get on this podium like my first time out here at least at IBJJF. So, that was absolutely a surreal experience, and I think the biggest compliment I got that weekend from my coach was that when I went out there and he was coaching me, he was like, "You listened to everything I said verbatim." And I won that match. So that was probably the coolest compliment of the weekend. Like, aside from the medals and stuff like that, it's like, okay,
Mhm.
actually good at this? Am I semi good at jujitsu? I can like listen and apply. Like, okay, we're getting somewhere.
This is maybe a silly question, but when they do introductions for IBJJF, did they like introduce you with like monikers like the submission sniper? Because I feel like that would be so appropriate. Like, it works for wrestling and BJJ, I feel like.
Man, I wish. And at the higher jiu-jitsu competitions like ADCC, I think, or
Mm,
like CJI Craig Jones Invitational, I want to say they do have their own walkout music, I believe. They do get announced. I'm assuming they do use their nickname or moniker or whatever, like they do for UFC as well. I'm assuming, but I would have to double check on that. But yeah, at higher level jujitsu
yeah.
competitions, oh for sure, for sure. This one is just like, hey, shoot name or whatever. Like
Yeah.
you're Mat 8, like that's it.
Uh,
So
I was like, come on, guys, don't you know you're in the presence of the submission sniper? Come on,
right,
guys.
where's my fog, my fog machine? Where's the pyro? None of that. I just get you, Mat 8. All right.
Now, if you did have like entrance music too, would it be different from your professional wrestling music, or do you think it would be the same?
That is a great question. So I think it would be the same, especially mine and Eel's tag music for obvious
Mhm.
reasons.
Yeah.
That would definitely be the same. If it was like something like my singles wrestling music, it would be like something heavier, like more heavy metal. Because that's the type of music that gets me into the zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, because I feel like, I mean, obviously wrestling is different. It's a bit more scripted. You're playing it. There's more components to it. I feel like in BJJ, you would definitely be more focused,
For
and kind
sure.
of hard metal. You're getting in the zone. I feel like,
Yep.
yeah, that would make sense. But they need to,
Sure.
don't they know who you are? The submission sniper, damn it.
There was one person other than obviously my teammates who called
Yeah.
me by Jordan Blade, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what? And so she's a former professional wrestler, Tess
Ah.
Valentine. Yep. So she's a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, and she was at the tournament as well. And I was like, no way, girls. I hadn't seen her in years, but yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool too though, because I know at your gym, you can't escape wrestling. I know you were blending a lot of catch wrestling with BJJ. So tell us about the process. How did that work how did that work with training and all of that? Was there like separate sessions, or did you just blend in catch wrestling into your BJJ sessions? How did that work?
Yeah, so I started training to be a pro wrestler before I started jujitsu. So
Yes.
when I started jujitsu, I was just putting work holds on because I didn't know what I was doing. Because so they're like, "What are you
What are
doing?
you
This
doing?
doesn't
Yeah.
work. Are you gonna keep going? Like, what are you doing?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"Look, find out to do." Um, and so it's easy though for me to now keep them separate now that I know what I'm doing in
Hmm.
BJJ. Um, so it's easy for me to keep them separate and be able to contort either what I'm doing or what my opponent's doing to be like, okay, hey, this is jujitsu or whatever, and hey, this is professional wrestling. Now it depends who I'm wrestling with as well. If I'm in there with Trish or Janai or Lisa Hall or somebody like that, all bets are off because I know they're gonna do the same stuff to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I obviously you mentioned you have your blue belt now. How did that validation feel when you got that certificate and your official blue belt after all this hard work?
So I didn't think it was coming. I really didn't. So I had missed the initial like uh group promotions or whatever. I was at,
Mm.
and so I'm at a random class, so just a random Wednesday a couple weeks ago. And usually, we'll warm up, we'll go over technique, and then we'll roll, and then we'll get a photo, and then we'll leave. So coach was making it very apparent that he wanted everybody to stay. And I'm like, all right, because some people will dip out after technique, like they don't want to roll
Yeah.
or whatever, which is fine. And so I'm like, okay. And I didn't expect it, but I did because my one of my teammates and coach were kind of being like weird about it. And I'm like, Nah, there's probably something else or whatever. So uh my teammate got his purple belt in 10th planet. So, we're all clapping and coach has a speech for everybody. And then he starts another speech, and I'm like, this is like very similar to what like happened to me or whatever. And then he calls my name, and I'm like, get the fuck out of here, man. So that was super cool. For that to happen, especially for the length of time I've been training, really since for in 10th planet, really since like January, February. So not long.
So have you continued your jujitsu training after that? Because I don't know the exact order. I think is purple one above blue.
Yep.
So are you working towards your purple belt now? Are you continuing that?
Yeah, for sure. So I for gi, I'm a blue belt with one stripe, and so you'll get four stripes on your belt, and then the next promotion you'll get the next color belt. Um, so I'm a little bit more progressed for gi jiu-jitsu, but yeah, I mean, the goal is to train as long as and as often as I can. I mean, that's of course the goal is a black belt, right? But I'm also being realistic with
Yeah.
like my body and my
Yeah.
my main priority being pro wrestling. So we got to be honest with ourselves sometimes.
Yeah, shifting to wrestling, you mentioned Janai Kai, you recently had an opportunity where you and Janai were teaming against a Japanese wrestling legend, Aja Kong, and Jada Stone, I believe it was.
Yep.
Uh, that was a big, kind of full circle moment for you, a dream opponent. Wasn't one on one, but you did get to share the ring with Aja Kong, which I know was huge for you. So tell us about that experience. And it just happened, actually just a week ago, week and a
A
half
couple weeks
ago.
ago, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
crazy. So soon.
Yeah, so she beat my ass, which I love because like I feel like anybody who like gets in the ring in professional wrestling is a masochist
Mhm.
of some variety. Um, but it was it was so surreal uh to be in the ring with her. And I'm standing in the ring as she's making her entrance, and I don't know if it's on the stream or whatever, but like I couldn't help but smile, even though like I'm about to wrestle against her, like, and I
Yeah,
gotta keep, obviously
yeah.
this side going. I'm just standing in the ring, I'm smiling because I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Like I'm about to wrestle Aja fucking Kong. Like who like most people don't get that opportunity, to wrestle like one of your heroes, like one of your
Hmm.
inspirations. Um, so I cried afterwards. Like legit. I sat by myself after the match. I cried because I was just like, what is this life, man? But huge thank you to Kitsune for making that match and making that happen. That dream come true for sure.
How has Aja personally inspired you? Obviously, you mentioned she's a big influence, big inspiration. How has she inspired you?
Yeah, so when you look at women's professional wrestling, um, you see, and this isn't a slight or a shade to anybody, but you see a lot of sameness, right?
Yeah.
So it's tough sometimes being different in women's professional wrestling, and by different I mean like I'm more masculine presenting, and so um Aja is someone who doesn't fit the mold. And anybody that, or I should say, any female wrestler that I've truly been a fan of, um, and enough to study tape and things like that, they all, in some form of another, didn't fit into the generic women's wrestler mold. So people like Lita, people like dang names people like Beth Phoenix, like so Sarah Del Rey, uh people like that who I looked up to because I knew that wasn't going to be me. I knew that being super feminine wasn't going to be me and wasn't going to be someone that I was going to feel comfortable portraying in the ring, because it's uncomfortable for me to an extent in real life, and that's 100% me. And I know sometimes trainers will when they're trying to find gimmicks, they'll be like, hey, like, just be you turned up to 11, or they're someone completely different.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could be someone completely different. I knew I needed to be myself, which is props to people who can be something completely different because I feel like that's hard. Um, but I knew I needed to be myself, and so looking up to people like Aja Kong, that was a huge inspiration to me.
Yeah, you had the opportunity to share the ring with her for a bit in there I saw. Tell us about some of the things you either learned about yourself or about wrestling through working with Asha. Obviously, you had some moments backstage as well. But what are some things you learned personally or professionally?
Yeah, that I'm a tough motherfucker from
Yeah.
going through all those chairs, man. But I think too, um, it, and this is so like generic and vague, and I could go into detail about this, but learning more so how to work the crowd. And I know as being in professional wrestling for 7 years, you should already know that. Like, yes, I do, but like there's so many aspects to doing so that obviously there's not one way, it's not a one size fits all thing. And so I'll, pull the curtain back a bit on this part. So sorry. But you know, the stuff we did on the outside, we didn't call, right? I'm
Yeah.
following her. Like I knew we were going out there, didn't know what we were doing out there, but I knew we were going out there. And she kind of just went with what obviously something that's always, made her popular, but something that the crowd wanted. We didn't call, her, crashing the Diet Coke can over my forehead. We didn't call that, but that was super cool, right? Um, so again, like just being able to work the crowd, we don't need to call everything, and I know people may disagree on that, which is fine. uh but we need to feel it. We need to feel how the crowd is going to be invested. We need to feel what they want when they want it. And it's almost like a manipulation thing. It's like you're manipulating the crowd, like,
Yeah.
do you want this? I know you do. I'm not going to give it to you just yet. Can you hold on a little bit longer? So yeah, I would say that was the biggest thing I learned.
Yeah, keep them on their toes, play hard to get, as they say, and then once that
Yeah.
spot hits, then it's like, yeah.
Right.
Um, you mentioned obviously coming off of this match with Aja, you obviously had an emotional post on Instagram. But one line that caught me is, you said you know in your heart that the opportunity to wrestle in Japan is just within your reach and you're just gonna keep pushing. So who are some competitors? Obviously, Aja is one of them that you'd like to work with in Japan in a dream scenario?
And Miyu Yamashita. That's like
Yeah.
that's like first and
Mhm.
foremost. I will say I'm super bad with names, but I can name other promotions I would love to work with.
Sure.
So TJPW like
Yeah.
would be obviously one. One that I was watching them the other day, that Janai has worked for is GLEAT. Um GLEAT. So a lot of their stuff kind of follows like the old school UWF style, which obviously that's something that I
Yeah.
would love to do. Um, so those are, I think, the two biggest promotions, and of course, Marvelous and Stardom.
Yeah.
So would love to I just want to sink my teeth in over there, man. I want to learn as much as I can over there because I feel like my style would lend itself well,
Mhm.
to blending in, with the Japanese style of wrestling.
Lucky for you too, Miyu Yamashita, former TJPW Princess of Princess Champion, is in the States pretty often, actually. She's everywhere, UK, US,
Yep.
Japan, all across Europe. She's kind of everywhere. So, even if the Japan might be down the line, you have a pretty good chance of wrestling Miyu in the States, potentially.
Somebody within the sound of my voice, please.
She's very hard hitting too, so I feel like you two would definitely match up very well together.
Yes.
Um, time to break an ankle. Just not permanently, Jordan. Just not permanently.
Okay, fine, fine.
You mentioned obviously expanding your horizons at promotions. Obviously, this was on the West Coast. A couple weeks before that, you competed at DOA's Queen of Thorns tournament, and then the next day you had a match against the Tower of Power Amira, which you said described as one of your best matches ever. So, tell us about that performance and why you rank it so high on your resume.
Yeah, so first of all, Amir and I met about a little over a year and a half ago
Yeah,
at Queen of Indies at West Coast Pro.
yeah.
So we hit it off immediately, and we had a little spot together where I Germaned her out of her boots. So I feel like this match is a little bit of a receipt, but I just think I hold Amira in such high regard, and for someone who has been only wrestling, I believe, for 2 years, um, she's fantastic. So I was super excited for this match. This is something that Amira had requested, which was I think that's one of the reasons why I hold in such high regard was because I mean, when people want to wrestle me, it's insane because I'm like, you want to wrestle me? So like I put so much pressure on myself because I'm like, all right, cool, like I want to give them a good match. Obviously, I want to have a good match, but I want to give them a good match. And like we were the main event of that show, and I really loved it too, was because I was able to showcase like who I am at my core, and that's a grappler, and I appreciated the crowd appreciating that. So that's something that I really um, like. I think on the West Coast they appreciate grappling and things. Of course, in the UK they do as well. So that appreciation for the style of wrestling that I love at its core, that's another reason that made that match really special for me.
So I couldn't find a graphic or anything. What promotion was this for specifically? I know it was obviously on the West Coast.
Yeah. So that was for DOA as well. So that
Okay,
was
so it was.
they just ran a house show in Independence
Got it.
the next day, that Sunday. So it wasn't like live streamed or anything. So we just had the footage that I posted.
Got it. Well, hopefully we get to see, the whole match released somewhere, especially, since it's ranking up there so high. And you mentioned people wanting to wrestle you. You might have heard about it. I recently spoke with one of your good friends, Riley Shepard. She's obviously out of commission for obvious reasons, but she did cite you as the opponent she'd like to most wrestle if and when she does make a comeback. So, and she did say you're her best friend. So obviously you've worked together in tag team competition, but never one on one. Tell us about your friendship with Riley and how that really blossomed.
Yeah, so she's one of my best friends in and out of the ring. So we started training around the same time,
Yeah.
and I went up to the Monster Factory where she was training at the time for like a 3-day camp or something. And we were two of like the only women there, as we are, as is normal in wrestling. And we just hit it off, I think, because we just kind of gravitated towards each other because it's like, oh, another woman, awesome.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes it's like being a lesbian. It's like, oh, the only other lesbian, let's gravitate towards each other. So so we hit it off, and we didn't really start talking that much until maybe 2020 2021. I'm so sorry, Riley, I forgot. So because I was going up to the tri-state area
Yeah.
a lot around that time, and so she lived up there or lives up there, and I was like, hey, like, can I come stay? And then it became like multiple weekends and like to the point where I
Can
have
I
a
stay
key.
over? Can I stay over
Yeah,
again, Riley? Yeah, yeah.
legit. To the point where I have a key to her apartment now. And so literally now it's not me asking if I can stay over, it's me
Just
telling them,
show
hey,
up.
I'm coming up. Yeah, I'm coming up this day, this time. She's like, and then she'll ask me, she's like, hey, like, what's your schedule? Let me know when you're coming up so I can, she can let her partner know. But I think I've told her this before, Riley is too nice for professional wrestling. Um, because she's just so genuine,
Yeah.
and her aura is, she's just super radiant and super nice, and she always fights for the underdog, for the little guy, and never fights for herself. That's why I have to fight for her. um but no, I love her so much. She's one of my best friends.
Now, two more questions for you. Obviously, you mentioned you recently celebrated earlier this summer your 7-year WrestleVersary. It's already been 7 years. Time flies by, Jordan. How do you think you've grown as a person and as a competitor throughout this time so far? Obviously, you've expanded your repertoire with some BJJ occasionally, depending on who you're facing. How else do you think you've grown?
Yeah, so I feel like I really have hit a lot of my stride this year, with just figuring out who I am as a wrestler, and well, in turn, who I am as a person, but who I am as a wrestler because uh, for a long time it was just kind of like, okay, like I like this, but I also like this, but I don't like that. And I was kind of just piecing things together, like taking puzzle pieces out of different puzzles and trying to put them together. And it just obviously it wasn't working. And so now I feel like I really hit my stride. I know kind of how I want to like structure my matches. I know how I want to present myself, which may change by the end of the year. A little hint there. Um, and I know who I am and I know what I want to do. So I'm more confident in that way. Um, as a person, probably like budgeting, like traveling for wrestling is can be so expensive. So I've had to learn how to budget a lot more as of late. So
You mentioned you've kind of figured out who you are, but it's also what do you want to do? So, what do you want to do? What are some of your personal and professional goals? Obviously, Japan. Obviously, Miyu Yamashita, Aja Kong one-on-one. What are some of your other goals for the next year or so? What do you want to do?
yeah, so I want to sign a full-time wrestling contract within the next year. So that's huge for me. But other than that, as you said, Japan, going back to the UK, going out regularly to the West Coast, high West Coast Pro, high prestige. So going back over there regularly, and just continuing to improve, both in and out of the ring and on the mats.
Of course, of course. I feel like I don't know. Yeah, you faced off with Rebecca Scott before, I believe. She's also big into BJJ. Have you guys? I mean, she obviously trains with Megan Bain as well. Have you guys kind of talked or bonded over that at all in any capacity?
So I'm sure we have, but like, and I feel like when we wrestled, she might have just been starting BJJ or
True.
hadn't started yet or
Mm-mm.
something like that. So I'm really actually interested into getting in the ring with her now,
Yeah,
because she trains like I think she trains like uh maybe like kickboxing too as well, I
yeah,
believe.
yeah.
So I'm like super impressed with her. I'm super impressed with her work as well as a pro wrestler because of also the she hasn't been in professional wrestling for a long time either.
About 3 years, I want to say now. Yeah,
Yeah, so I'm like, damn, girl, you're already good. But yeah, I'm sure that's something we have bonded over. I'm sure we've had that conversation. But again, my memory is
yeah.
like 80.
It's okay. It's another opponent though, besides the Janais, the Trishadors, that you can lay into your BJJ stuff with though,
Oh, for
if and
sure.
when you guys do wrestle again. So that's
For
something
sure.
to look forward to. I want to see that too. I want to see more of this BJJ side, out in professional wrestling. Obviously, it's dependent on who you're wrestling and all that, but I would love to see that more often. So somebody needs to book. Yeah, obviously you and me, you and Aja. We need you and Rebecca now in the current day. So book those matches, guys.
Yes.
And book her Japan, UK, everything. We want everything for
Hear
Jordan
this?
Blade.
You hear this? Y'all hear this? Let's go. We're manifesting.
Jordan, before we let you go, please let the listeners know where they can find you on social media and support you.
Yes, so you can find me on Twitter/X, Instagram, and TikTok, all the same at Jordan_Blade 92. You can catch some of my matches on my YouTube channel, which is obviously just Jordan Blade. And hopefully you'll catch me on TV soon.
You can plug your OnlyFans too if you want.
Word. Hey, OnlyFans too. At Jordan_Blade 92. You're the best. I see.
Got you.
You're looking out. I appreciate you. Period.
Jordan, the daddy of the district, the submission sniper, the ankle breaker, legend of BJJ and professional wrestling. Thank you so much for joining me here today. It's been an absolute pleasure as always.
Thank you. I appreciate you.